Okay, hello everybody. My name is Leo, and this is the TKT preparation course. Today we're going to be talking about grammar. I know as an English teacher, you know a lot of grammar. What I want to do is just mention the facts, important aspects, and everything you have to learn to pass your test in the kinds of questions you're going to be having, the kinds of skills you're going to be developing, and more importantly, what to do to get the best score. So, Unit 1, Grammar. I know you know some grammar. I'm going to just mention the facts needed for our exam preparation. So, how to define grammar? We can say that grammar refers to how we combine, organize, and change parts of words and groups of words to make meaning. We use grammar unconsciously when we speak, listen, read, or write. We also use it, particularly as teachers, to describe language. We do this by referring to its forms and its uses. Grammar includes a large number of forms and uses. So, when we think about grammar, we think about a whole universe of expressions and terms and uses, and then it is kind of difficult to really get the whole idea of what grammar is. So I propose you, as a TKT candidate, understand grammar divided. I want you to divide this grammar. For example, here is the first question. I'm gonna put it closer for us to see. So we have how to understand such a vast universe of grammatical structures. So the answer is to group them in something called the parts of speech. The parts of speech, it's just this division of all the grammatical terms. And believe me, for this, you want to take notes. You want to just try to note down everything that it is new for you, everything that you can just feel you didn't know. But if there's anything you know, you don't actually need to. So, for parts of speech, we talk about adjectives, nouns, pronouns, verbs, adverbs, conjunctions, interjections, prepositions, etc. So we're going to begin these definitions, and we're going to understand them very well. So in the first place, we have nouns. I hope you can read it. Nouns. So we have, a noun is a word used to describe a person, a place, or a thing. So we talk about books or cities like New York or New Delhi or Medellin, or we talk about Carlos or he or the president, and those would be the nouns. And then for nouns, we also have several subtypes or categories that we want to talk about, being the first one proper nouns, abstract nouns, common nouns, collective nouns, countable and uncountable, those a lot, and then gender nouns, singular nouns, plural nouns, everything related to nouns. So let's just try to define them, use them, understand them. So again, a definition of a noun, it's like nouns are words that name people, places, things, or ideas. So here's the first example, and the second for place, and the third for things. Then we can talk about a noun being described as types, like we have common nouns here, and these name general, non-specific people, places, things, or ideas. Common. Think about definitions of common things that are common for many people, like like man, city, religion, or airline. Depending on of their translation, these words mean the same for people in different cultures. So that's why they're called common nouns. And then we have proper nouns, like these name specific people, places, or things. And this is an example. These are places, these are specific religions, this is the name of a person, this is proper, it is like something that is thought of to be yours, or the person that uses it gets it. Then we have abstract nouns, and the definition is that they name something that you cannot perceive with your five senses. So we talk about happiness, love, pride, religion, belief. All of them are considered to be abstract nouns. So you might want to think about some more. You want to, complement your notes with this. Now we have concrete nouns. These name something that you can perceive with your five senses. So we can talk about eyes, lion, suitcase, flower, chocolate. Something you can perceive, something you can see, listen to, eat, feel with your hands, with your skin, etc. There's countable nouns and uncountable nouns. I know this topic brings a lot of questions. Like, we usually teach it by saying to the students, okay, you could or could not count. And then if you could, it is countable. If you could not, it's uncountable. But students then say, but teacher, I can count rice. I can count sugar. Look, there's a cube of sugar. It is tiny little thing, but yeah, I can still see it. I can still count it. And it is simple. I just want you to think about those words, the examples. It says clock, clocks, pencil, pencils, movie, movies, train, trains, for example. The countable nouns are nouns that can take an S. If you add an S, the S letter, to the noun, and it still makes sense, then it is countable. But then if you take these other concepts like milk, rice, snow, rain, water, food, and music, and you add S and it doesn't sound that right, that's a good indicator of it being an uncountable noun, because it is very strange for us in English to talk about milks or rices or snows or rains or waters or foods or music. They are used, but they are used this way, but in a very different context, in different circumstances. So this is the way. Now we can talk about. I'm gonna come back and continue with this part. So, compounds and collective nouns. Compound nouns, these are made up of two or more smaller words. So you think about eye and glasses, you add them up and you have eyeglasses, New York, or sunflower. Sunflower is the product of two words, sun and flower. Collective nouns, they refer to a group of things as one whole. So we say bunch or audience. An audience is a group of people. A flock is a group of animals. A team is a group of people as it is the word group or family. So you think about army, you think about police, and those are collective nouns. One word in singular with a plural meaning. Now we're going to talk about singular and plural. Singular plurals, we know, just the singular nouns are just the nouns that don't take S, because they just refer to one thing, just one thing. In the plural, it's the version of this same noun being more than one. It says, these refer to more than one person, place, or thing, or idea. So we have cats, ships, heroes, monkeys, and babies. And then we can talk about possessive nouns. Possessive nouns are used to show ownership. Like what belongs to who? Like Dad's car, or the student's books, and Ali's hat. The books belong to her, to the student, so we understand it that way, and that would be all for nouns. Second category in here would be the one related to verbs. So I'm gonna go to verbs. So yeah, we can say that a verb defines or describes an action, whereas the nouns describe a thing. I mean, more than describe, name a thing. Verbs describe actions. And we have a lot of types of verbs. As English teachers, I know that you manage the topic of tenses, so we talk about the present, past, future, and we talk about the use of it. So we can talk about the present simple, present continuous or progressive, present perfect, past simple. That is something which is general for us as English teachers. But then there's something I really want to talk about, like the description, the types of verbs. For example, we can talk about intransitive verbs. I'm pretty sure you're taking notes by now. Intransitive verbs are verbs that have one verb that has no object, like the bell rings. The action is not being transited. The action is not being received by an object. So, for example, I die. We don't say, I will die you. We say, I will kill you. In that sense, it would be transitive. Like here, the verb for transitive verbs, we can say that the verb takes or has an object. I eat an apple. So I can see that the action transcends from me to the apple. Then we talk about participle verbs. Verbs that end in, we can talk about present participle or past participle. They are used for specific purposes and reasons. Then we can talk about infinitive verbs. Those that are not conjugated, and are those that we use with the preposition to eat, to sleep, to go, to come. Then we can talk about the verb mood. We can talk about declarative, interrogative, or imperative. The declarative is just like a definition or a description of an action. It's just like I eat an apple. I mean, I am not actually saying something out of the context or the ordinary. We just say, I eat an apple. But then if I say, do you eat apples? I want to know an answer. So I don't know the answer. The answer could be yes. The answer could be no. So that's why it's interrogative mood. And then we can talk about the imperative mood, which is, think about it as orders, like eat your apple, close the door, come here, sit down, read the book. And those are the imperative moods of verbs. Then we can talk about the voice of the verb or the tense. So we can talk about an active voice and a passive voice. In an active voice, we can say that the subject performs the action. Like I teach English. I teach, it's important. It's more important actually than the topic or subject itself. But what if I say English is taught? I can actually avoid using the person who teaches it or the place where English is taught. I just can say English is taught. And if I say that, I'm going to be using the passive voice. Like I can add the person, like it says the apple is eaten by me, but actually to the greater extent, the passive voice is used to refer to objects instead of subjects. So, for example, we say millions of computers are manufactured every year. I don't care about who manufactures them. I don't care about where these computers are manufactured, or for example, other aspects. So, when you think about the passive voice, think about it as something more in which the subject is more important than the object. Then we're going to talk about the modal verbs. Modal verbs. First of all, you can call them the rebels of the language. The rebels because they just don't follow any rules. Like for use of the tenses or verbs, we can say that if we're going to negate, we need an auxiliary, or to ask a question, we also need to use an auxiliary. But this group of verbs, the modal verbs, just don't play by those rules. They don't follow those rules. We think about them as verbs to express specific abilities, or verbs that are used under specific circumstances. For example, if I want to ask for a favor or make a request, for example, I use could, would, should, like could you please open the door, would you please tell me the time, and then I don't actually need any auxiliary with them. So we have may, might, will, can, could, should, would, ought to, and all of them. Besides modals, we can talk about auxiliary verbs. And yeah, we use auxiliary verbs to form questions and negations in English. And this is a particular aspect of English. For example, we don't have that in Spanish. So here's an example. I do not eat tells us that's what does not happen. Finally, we can talk about conditional verbs. Conditional verbs or conditional tenses. Then we are going to describe like 4 types of conditionals, but the most commonly used are like conditionals type 0, type 1, type 2, and type 3. So, for conditionals, we can talk about the simple conditional, like I would eat. Then continuous, like I would be eating, and the perfect, like I would have eaten or I would have eaten. Then as teachers, you know that there are like the conjugations and the tenses, depending on the kind of conditional we talk about. Like in the perfect continuous, like I would have been eating if you hadn't stopped talking, for example. And this is all for verbs. Now, there is a very important aspect when talking about verbs. Look, you know that there is a form of the verb. So you know that, for example, for simple present, we add s to the third person. We like keep perform, whether we are negating or asking a question. But there's one step ahead I want you to go, and that is the use of the verb. For example, how is the present simple tense used in English? So here's an example. We use the present simple for facts and permanent states, like Tony works for a construction company. That means that Tony does this on a regular basis. For example, if I say Tony works, it means that he worked yesterday, he is probably working today, and he might be working tomorrow. Then we talk about general truths and laws of nature, like heat flows from hot to cold. Like if you think about like a natural a law of nature, you want to think about gravity. Objects tend to fall. All of them, all the time. So this is a general truth, and it is a law of nature. Then you want to talk about the habits and routines with words such as always, usually, etc. And this is an example. He usually cleans the car on Sundays. That means it is something he does in a regular basis. Then we can also talk about timetables and programs for the future, like my train departs at 5:32 exactly. So in this case, I want you to think about things that are repetitive. Think about things that repeat themselves and they're mechanical things. Then it says sporting commentaries. So yeah, when you watch sports, football, soccer games, or basketball, this is how they are commented, like reviews and narrations, like Mason passes on the far side and clips the crash barrier. In this case, we use simple present. And finally, use it for feelings and emotions, like I love Venice. It is a beautiful city. If I say I love it, it would be like I loved it yesterday, I still love it, and I am very likely to love it in the future. So think about those things. Remember, we have timelines to explain them better. As English teachers, you may know how to use a timeline. If you still don't, talk to me. I'll tell you how. It is very important for us to use it as reference. And here's the same for the past. Actually, you can find this actually for every single tense. And for this TKT test, it is very important for you to use it, to know it. They're going to be asking you things related to the form of the grammatical structure and its use. So, it is very important for you to know it. Now, I'm going to cross here to talk about adverbs. We talk about adverbs. We say that we use adverbs with verbs. We say that we use adverbs to describe adjectives. So, for example, she is extremely beautiful. So, more than describing her, the word extremely is describing the word beautiful. When I say she is extremely beautiful, or this building is incredibly tall, the word incredibly is describing the word tall instead of the building itself. So, for adverbs, we can talk about the types of adverbs. We can talk about an adverb of place, which tells me where the action is done. Like I went outside, or I'm gonna go upstairs, or I live here but I wanna go there, or you can contact me everywhere. It tells me the place. Then there are like those adverbs that talk about the time, and they're called time adverbs. And here are some examples: afterwards, before, yet, still. So this is important. This tells me when the action was performed. Then we have the purpose for which an action is being carried out. For example, to avoid smoking, I don't go to that place. Or you can change the order and say, I don't go to that place to avoid smoking. To get or to remember. So those are infinitive purpose or adverbs of purpose. And then we talk about to, if you want to talk about to the extent of the degree, like barely, almost, nearly, quite, and hardly, and just, we may mention these adverb forms and the manner, how something is done. For example, she runs quickly, and I drive carefully, or I read well, or I just finished, and this is quite expensive, or I hardly did it. It tells me how. Then we have the adverbs of frequency, something you know, something you have previously seen. This tells me how often this action is done. Like, I often go to the stadium, I never drink, I always sleep late, I sometimes read books. And that's all for adverbs. Then we can talk about here, there's one category I would like to mention, the adjectives. Adjectives. So, as we already said, an adjective is a word used to describe a noun. To describe a noun or to add meaning to a pronoun. So we talk about opinion adjectives, which are used to describe your opinion about something, like words such as generous, bad, or ugly, like kiwi fruits taste really bad. So I'm telling my opinion, my point of view. For somebody else, it should be really good, or it could be really good. Then we talk about the descriptive adjectives, which tells us about the quality of the person or the thing. We can talk about a factual adjective, which describes the quality of a person or a thing. Like she has brown eyes and one-story build. She lives in a one-story or one block or building, and she travels in a big ship. And this is an example. The soccer ball is round. I'm talking about something that is factual. It is not what you think. It is not what I think. It's what it is. Then we can talk about the classifying adjectives for places, something in which a group of type of things are done. For example, we have red roses, stone tables, silk pants, and the example is that Amy has 5 Labrador dogs. And there is another kind of adjectives you actually know very well. Comparative and superlative. So, yes, comparative are used to compare two things, to like one-to-one comparison, like A versus B, like John is taller than Mark. Or groups, for example, people from Colombia are taller than people from China. Then we have the superlative adjectives, in which we just talk about one thing compared to a group. Like in a class, there are several students, but Tom is the best of them, and John is the worst of them. So we talk about how to describe things with adjectives. After we have discovered this, there's actually a really interesting topic here. The determiners. So, what is a determiner? A determiner specifies a noun as known or unknown, and it goes before any modifiers, for example, adjectives or other nouns. Some examples of determiners are the articles, like the, a, or an, the demonstratives, like these or those, the possessives, like my or your, and the quantifiers, like some or every. And here's an example. The house team, the article the, specifies the team as known. Or a good team, the article specifies the team as unknown. That pupil, like the demonstrative, like here, like these, that, those, or Julia's parents. So they're telling me what is going on with the parents. They're telling me that they belong to Julia. And then we can talk about some big boys. So some tells me about the quantity, how many boys. It is not actually like a fixed quantity, but I know it's to contrast. But if you really want to understand this well, just remember, take note, just there are 5 main types of determiners. The articles, a, and the demonstratives, these, that, these, those, the possessives, my, your, his, or her, or its, or our, or them. The quantifiers, like some, any, all, enough, no, both, each, every, few, much, more, must, fewer, less, and either, and neither. And the WH determiners, like what, or which, or whoever, or whose. Those would be the determiners. And then we are going to talk about prepositions. Yeah, the prepositions we know. We know that there are prepositions of time, like in, at, and on, like in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. This is something we know. Then we can talk about the prepositions of place, being the prepositions of place, like at school, or behind the door, or under the table, on the floor, through the window, etc. And we can also talk about the prepositions of movements, like from a city, or to another city, or when you go on foot, or when you go by car, or by bus, or by taxi. So remember, prepositions. Prepositions are used to indicate the time, the place, or the movement of something. In this case, mostly a noun. And then after we study the prepositions, there are some 2 important aspects to check. We have the pronouns. Yeah, the pronouns we know. We have relative pronouns, reflexive pronouns, personal pronouns, and demonstrative pronouns. indefinite pronouns, intensive pronouns, interrogative pronouns. Some examples of these are found here in the pronoun chart. So we have the first person, the second person, the third person, if it is male or female. We have the one that is in the middle, and then the first person of plural, second person in plural, third person in plural. This will be the indefinite third person. So we talk about subject pronouns like I, you, he, she, etc. Then we know that the subject pronouns come before a verb, like I love, you love, he loves, she loves, etc. Then we talk about the object pronouns like love me, love you, love him, love her, love it, love us, and love you, etc. Possessive adjectives, so these go with nouns like my book, your book, his book, her book, its book, etc. And the possessive pronouns, those go, for example, after the verb to be, like the book is mine, the book is yours, the book is his or hers. It is not used for its, but the book is ours or yours. And the reflexive pronouns, when we know that we use the reflexive pronouns after a verb colliding or just being the same with the correspondent subject pronoun. For example, I love myself, you love yourself, he loves himself. Those will be the pronoun chart, and then we're going to go into a very interesting aspect, the topic, the conjunctions. Conjunctions. Every time you think about a conjunction, I want you to think about uniting things. Think about putting two things together. That is a conjunction. For example, we have coordinating conjunctions, being these and, but, or, yet, for, nor, or so. Like I can play and I can swim. I can play but I cannot swim. I can play or I can swim. I can play yet I cannot swim. All of them. Then we have the subordinated conjunctions. Subordinating conjunctions are after, although, as if, as long as though, because, before, even if, even though, if only, and all of these, they play an important role in specific exams, such as the TOEIC test, for example, just to mention some. So we have though, till, unless, until, and your homework as a teacher is to get to know know them, know how to use them, know how to teach them, and have correlative conjunctions, such as both and, not only but also, not but, neither nor, either or, whether or, etc. And the conjunctive adverbs such as however, moreover, nevertheless, finally, again, and also. Remember, the main use of these words is to link sentences. Then, to finish up this first topic of the parts of speech, I'm going to talk about an interjection. An interjection. Interjections are exclamations. And with these exclamations, we express emotions that typically are not a real grammatical value. For example, words such as da, or ha, or na, or or words such as yippee or others. So the idea with the interjections, remember, they are called interjections. They are also called in expressions that we use, like exclamations, and they're mostly used to express, to show feelings. So you're going to study this very hard, because now we're going to do some exercises. That's going to be in the next video. But first, I need you to learn to identify these different parts of speech. I really want you to master them, because that day, the day of the exam, you're going to be seeing some, and you really have to know what to answer and how to do it so you can get the best possible score. So please study hard. See you next class. Bye-bye.